and welcome to another River Landing Conversation. My name is Jim Kalaki. I'm a part of the Furrow Work Group, and I'm joined by my good friend Helen Shields, who has kindly agreed to come and do these conversations over this fall term. We're having our second one today, and we're thrilled to welcome Robbin Mundy. Mundy. Oh, excuse me.
All right.
We're still human. And Robbin, as many of you will know, is the chaplain in the health division here at River Landing. We haven't, unfortunately, gotten to see too much of Robbin over the last year or two because of the current health crisis, and it's an absolute joy to be sitting with her in person this morning. So Robbin, welcome.
Thank you.
This afternoon. Thank you for coming, and we look forward to another lively River Landing conversation.
Thank you. Thank you.
We know that your friends and people here at River Landing call you Robbin.
That's right.
Is that your real name and given name, and did it have any significance in your family?
Why did you have to say, is that your real name? I'll tell you why. That is my real name. My name is Robbin. That is my first name. The thing that's interesting about my name is most people don't realize that Robbin, for me, Robbin is spelled with two B's. And I have always spelled my name with two B's, and it was not until I was in my 20s and had gone to Houston to help with a new church start during college and transferring college. I had to have my birth certificate at that time, and I discovered my birth certificate was misspelled. It only had one B in it. So I called my mother and I said, why does my birth certificate only have one B? It's misspelled. And she said, oh, did I never tell you about that? I said, no, you didn't tell me about that. And so she said, well, a few days after we got home from the hospital, I changed my mind and I thought it would be better to have two B's in your name. Not knowing that, of course, when I was 14 and needed a Social Security card so I could go to work, I fussed with them and said, you've misspelled my name. My name has two B's. And finally the lady said, oh, okay, well, I'll correct that. So she did. And then when I went to get my driver's license a couple of years later, they misspelled my name. And I said, you've misspelled my name. My name has two B's. And they said, well, where's your Social Security card? I pulled it out and it had two B's. They said, we'll correct that. And I said, okay. Oh. So, yes, Robbin is my real name. And it's spelled with two B's. And Social Security knows that. Department of Motor Vehicles knows that. The IRS knows that. I want you all to know that as well. Probably where my name was inspired came from the pastor of the church that my parents grew up in. They were both bus kids that came to church on the bus. And so his name, and it was here in Greensboro at Emmanuel Baptist Church. His name was Preacher Robbins. That's what they called him, Preacher Robbins. His real name was Troy. His wife's name was Lillian. He did their marriage ceremony, and we knew him well growing up, like another set of grandparents to us. So the Robbins name is what inspired my name to be Robbins.
Oh, nice. Wow.
Thank you for your question. That's a lot more than you asked for.
Thank you for your explanation.
See, there are ways to get around bureaucracy and red tape and
Probably
and
I
so
couldn't
forth.
get by with that today, but boy, back then I did.
So, Robbin, where are you from and where did you grow up?
I was born in Greensboro at Moses Cone Hospital, and at age 2, my family moved to Raleigh, where my dad's work had him transferred, and then about age 9, we moved to Durham, and I spent the rest of my growing up years in Durham. And so I did that until college time, went to Carolina, and then transferred to Houston Baptist and seminary and all of that. But Durham is what I call home.
Where did you work before coming to River Landing?
just prior to coming to River Landing, I was a hospice chaplain and I was in an office there in Southern Pines, and my home was in Whispering Pines, and that's a wonderful, wonderful area. And so I very much enjoyed my work as a hospice chaplain. And prior to being in Southern Pines, I was down in Laurinburg with the hospice there. And so that's what I did. And prior to that experience, I was in church congregational ministry for many, many years. And so that's been my path.
Curiosity, while you were in Laurinburg, did you have anything to do with Scotia Village?
I did.
Our viewers, some people you've probably heard of Scotia as one of the three communities of Presbyterian homes, and that's in Laurinburg, which is in sort of southeast part of the state.
Yeah. Laurinburg is a wonderful community, and I very much enjoyed that. And as a hospice chaplain for Hospice of Scotland County, I had some residents at Scotia Village that I would visit, and did some bereavement programs there and grief programs there at Scotia Village. So yeah, I very much was aware of Scotia Village, and I used that card when I applied for this job.
Oh, good for you. All right.
Yeah. Your title is chaplain, but that's just a title. Tell us what you do, and other than just chaplain.
I am the healthcare chaplain here at River Landing, which means that I have the great privilege of knowing people in Muirfield and Pebble Beach, and hello to my friends, Wingfoot and St. Andrews. So wonderful to get to know them. And the way I do that is I do a lot of visiting and go from home to home and get to know them, learn their stories, find out what it is that has been a really important resource for them in their life's journey when they have perhaps in the past faced some challenging times, and yet here you are today beyond that, and how did you do that? And so I love to learn from people not only about their religious background, but their beliefs and their spiritual connection, because it's a little different for every one of us. There are no two alike. And I am just delighted to get to know that about people. So I spend some time with our residents in healthcare learning your stories, and so that I can be a support to you no matter what the day is looking like for you. I also have a great opportunity, though, to meet the staff in a more personal way. So I look for opportunities to have connection with the staff. During this COVID time, we've been doing a lot of testing, and I asked early on, can I be a part of testing? Just because as the staff has to come into work, or as they're clocking out to leave work, they come through testing twice a week right now. And it gives me the opportunity to see them one-on-one and just check in and to find out how are things going, and how is your mom doing, by the way, and tell me about your vacation or whatever, so that I can develop a little rapport, trusting relationship with our staff. We have some delightful staff, so I love being able to meet them, know them, support them, and encourage them during this difficult time. The other group I count as an honor is the families of our residents, and I have that privilege of meeting many family members and being able to talk with them and offer some encouragement, especially during this COVID time, when so many times they've been distanced because of restrictions. So I visit. I do worship services. I have conversations, group setting conversations, and try my best to find ways to lift spirits, help people laugh a little, and be sensitive to what folks are going through.
Robbin, what makes you qualified for these roles?
I'm a good listener.
Uh-huh.
And I I'm told that I am a compassionate person, and I am an empathetic person, so I can kind of get into the shoes with the person fairly comfortably and understand a little bit about what they're feeling, And if I can do a good job of listening and allowing them to talk and follow their train of thought, then perhaps we can have a relationship that's an important connection as life changes for them. So I have a seminary background. I have years of experience in church congregational ministry, where lots of pastoral care there. I will say that my first chaplain's uniform, if you will, was red and white striped. Because back in the day, when I was a kid, we lived 3 houses down from Watts Hospital in Durham, and I was a candy striper. I had no idea that my visits while handing out flowers and cards and mail was so important, but the conversations were wonderful then. It's amazing how many people talked to me as a kid, and I just loved it. And so now looking back, I'll say, well, I was a chaplain then and didn't know it.
One of the things I learned, actually, when we talked with your good friend and colleague, Ken Massey, was he made for me the important distinction between being a chaplain and being a pastor of a particular church. And I'm assuming you've had a similar road that you've gone down.
I oftentimes will say to people, when I was a pastor, you would come to my church, you sort of had an expectation of kind of what you were going to hear in the theology and all of that. When I walk into your home, to your room, I'm going to listen to you because I want to know your theology and your beliefs and what works for you. So I'm not bringing my beliefs to you. I'm coming to hear yours and celebrate that with you. Sometimes people will say to me, go save somebody today, and joke, and I said, I don't do that. I don't do that, but I sure do meet a lot of wonderful people.
Yeah.
And so I celebrate the path they're on. It's very different from congregational ministry, for sure.
Well, maybe just by virtue of being a good listener, you indeed are saving some people, because so few of us are very good listeners in many situations.
Right.
Do you have a favorite river landing experience, or more than one, that you could share with us?
Let me share one for sure. During this COVID time, we have had to be creative. And so when we were in lockdown, as our residents often say, we're in lockdown, we did for a period of time, we were able to do some hallway activities. I did worship in the hallways. I did just sit down with them in a group in the hall and talk about life and remember when and those kind of useless fact stuff I would throw out just to get a reaction. One day, I was in Pebble Beach, and we were having a hallway conversation just among friends, and we were talking about some of the dances that they learned as young people and what they did, and we had some great laughs. And before the session ended, one of our residents, and most of our residents at that point were in wheelchairs. A few of them were sitting in chairs, but most of them were in wheelchairs. One of our residents said, you all remember the such and such dance. And she began to, with her feet, show us how to move our feet to do that dance. And we were all trying to do it. And she would correct us. And we laughed. It was so funny. And it was a great time. Everybody was laughing. We had one lady in tears. She was laughing so hard. And I walked away from that thinking, wow, what a gift.
Wow.
What a gift.
Wonderful.
Great story.
Fun times. We had some hard times during COVID, but we've really had some really, really fun times. So
Good.
Robbin, are there things that folks might like to know about you that they don't know already?
I hope that you know that I love what I do. I love coming to work. I love being at River Landing. I truly do appreciate so much about the environment together that we create, residents, staff, all of us together create. I love my family, and I'm very proud of my family, delighted in each of them. And some of you don't realize that my mother is here at River Landing. She is a resident here at River Landing. And I was so blessed and so fortunate to be able to bring her here at a time when this is what she really needed. So she's a resident in St. Andrews, and I get to see her and be her chaplain, but also get to be her daughter on a regular basis, have a lot of interaction with her. So I'm delighted that she is here, and I cannot say enough about the staff that I encounter here at River Landing, who care for her and love her, laugh with her. So it's all good.
Oh, how wonderful. That's
Yeah,
such,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. Could not ask for more.
Gosh.
Tell us a little about you and music. Do you have a favorite song? What type of
You
music?
should ask that. Now, there are some people who are watching probably that are saying, oh, no. I love good music, and I have a great appreciation for music. Music has a terrific amount of power and meaning for all of us. It has its place for the soul. It is medicine for the soul. I do not sing.
Okay.
I sang in large church choirs so that I could sing so low that I didn't mess it up. I love good music. I love the hymns of faith, choir, and I so celebrate the people who have that as a gift. That's not my gift. But I jokingly say, you let me hold my iPad, though, and I can lead worship with the best of them, because I can go to YouTube and I can get my choirs, and when I don't have live choir help, I can sure bring it in by YouTube. And that's what I've been doing for worship a lot when I couldn't have a pianist there and all of that. So music, though, it does feed our soul. And sometimes I use music all the time. And in our earliest days of COVID, I set a speaker outside of my office so that I could play hymns of faith and meaningful, relaxing music, and then some fun music, just for our staff to try to lift spirits and nurture them as they move through the halls. And so I use music a lot. So
Wonderful.
Do you have other pastimes that you do, that you enjoy?
just, I truly, I do enjoy reading. I enjoy sitting on my screened-in porch, and I have an oasis for my backyard, and I let the birds sing to me all the time. And I have two little dogs, and so I just I love the outdoors. I love to work in the yard and the flower gardens and things like that. So yeah.
They do. Well, one of our my favorite question, and Helen is part of it too. You know this one is coming. Is if the details were taken care of, who are three people, or four, or two, in all of time that you would like to have a visit with, or have a meal with, or sit and chat with for a while?
I would love to have an opportunity to meet with Rosa Parks, primarily just to say thank you. Thank you. She was an inspiration, and her inspiration far outlived her. And I just would love the opportunity to say thank you for who you have been and continue to be. Another person that came to mind when I read that question in your email was the Apostle Paul. Now, Paul can rub us wrong, or he can rub us right, and I'd just love to be able to sit down with him for a little bit and ask if he had a redo, what would it be? And how would it look? And how would it sound? And how might he update things in today's society? Is there anything he would do differently? I would just love to ask him that. The third one I'll mention is Rachel Held Evans. Rachel Held Evans died just a few years ago. She was 37. She authored a book called, I think the book title is A Year of Biblical Womanhood. She was a blogger, a wonderful conversationalist, and she would inspire conversation through her blog and get lots of input from people. And she just had such a wonderful gift of that. And I learned so much from her. I would love to have her back for a time. And I thought of her really first because in my lifetime, we have come in recent years through such very difficult and divisive times as a country, as a nation, and it has really created a whole lot of division. And we went straight into COVID that separated and isolated and restricted connection. And I would love to know from Rachel how she might help guide us spiritually to reconnect and to do some emotional repair and create a better sense of mutual respect and appreciation. She would have that gift. And this is a time when I feel like we've sort of been put in time out, so to speak, and we really do kind of need to think things through before we step into a newfound freedom, which we don't know what it's going to look like yet. But I would love to have a conversation with her and get some insight from her on that.
Indeed. And say her name again.
Rachel Held Evans.
And presumably if people were to Google her.
They Google her, they'll find her.
They'll find her.
Rachel Held Evans.
Great.
Yeah.
Good. As you anticipated our conversation today, are there some questions that you thought we might not ask that you would like to talk about?
I don't think so. I think your questions were great, so I didn't come up with anything else. And if I did, I sort of have already put it in. I've included it.
One of the things, before we wrap it up, that if I may, I wanted to come back to, was when you were describing, this is sort of like your day though there isn't clearly a typical average day in your life at work these days. But I was thinking about your beautiful description about going around and visiting people and so on. Do you have a kind of a pattern that you've worked out? So on Mondays you come in and how do you sort out that you'll actually get around and see everyone and make sure, somebody isn't left out or forgotten or whatever? Because I imagine with the fluid nature of the population coming and going, that's quite a challenge to keep up with.
It changes, and so I print out a census every morning so that I know what changes have happened overnight or in the last 24 hours, and take a look at that. I know enough by now, I know enough about our folks to sort of be up to date with where they are health-wise and what's kind of going on and which ones may experience a little more loneliness perhaps than others and so forth. And so I sort of know which ones I see more often and which ones I just check in on because they don't really need a lot, but it's nice for them to know they're not forgotten.
Sure.
I also check with each household staff, and I'll stop with them in the hall or nurse station or wherever to say, hey, how are folks doing? Are there any changes that I could be helpful with and be aware of? And they might give me a bug in the ear to say, this person is struggling with this or what have you. So I can just sort of walk in and say, hey, how are things going for you today? And then pretty quickly they kind of go in, well, it was okay until, and so then I can let them talk about that. So I try to see all of our folks at least every other week.
Wow.
That doesn't always happen. I try to do that based on what's going on and their situations and COVID restrictions, et cetera, et cetera. Fortunately, as healthcare chaplain, I'm still able to go to every household and visit these folks. But I try to see them on a regular basis so that they know me and they know my voice and we know what we like to talk about. And so if there comes a time in their life when they're not able to engage fully, I still know what we talk about. and know what music they like, and know what scriptures they like, or what readings they've enjoyed, and can continue to offer that care.
How wonderful.
What was your biggest surprise when you came to River Landing?
I think, I don't know that I was so surprised, but I certainly appreciated so much how deeply the residents care for each other. I really have encountered folks from independent living genuinely care about friends and neighbors they've had through the years that are now living in the healthcare part of campus. And the struggle that some of our healthcare folks have had, that they couldn't come back over to the independent side all the time that they would like to do the things with their friends and neighbors that they've always done. And so it's just a genuinely caring community. It's rich and deeply meaningful, very powerful. So I really have really enjoyed just sort of stepping in to that life and being a part of that. So,
one of the things, I'm just sitting here, Robbin, thinking both in this conversation and the one that was broadcast a little while back with another friend and colleague, Megan Brown. And for me, and I can only assume that there are others like me out there who, hearing your story and Megan's about sort of what you both bring to the healthcare situation here, and even before those conversations, I couldn't imagine I wanted to be anywhere else. But in terms of what you all provide and what you oversee in having others provide, it's just absolutely touching and moving. And thank you for that, because it's pretty important stuff to know that, you know, folks like you and Megan and others are in the roles that you're in. It's so reassuring.
right. I do hear sometimes from people in independence, they'll say, "Oh, I don't really want to know you yet." You know? And I do understand. None of us really wants to step into a limited health declines kind of situation. But I hope that some of what I've been able to share today, and I hope that some of the things that they will experience in time while they visit there or come temporarily or whatever, is that we still live life.
Yeah.
We are about living every day and celebrating every day rather than think about dying a little every day. We want to live every day as full as we can, as good as we can. And so that's really what we're about.
And from what you've said and what we hear, have great fun doing it.
That's right.
It's
very
not
important.
a,
Yeah.
wow. Well, thank you so much. This has
Thank you for having
just
me.
been an absolute delight. Thank you for joining us for another River Landing conversation. We will be on again at the same time next week. Our guests for that session will be Kathy and Dick Coe, who have been residents here for a number of years, and we look forward to having you join us then. I should mention also that if you would like to share this conversation with others who don't have access to 1390, at about the time that they're actually being broadcast, they also, Brian, through some magical means, which I don't quite understand, but it happens anyhow, he will have them in the video section on CareMerge, and you can go to that section, click on the particular video, and then there's a link that if you care to copy it and paste it and send it to friends, neighbors. I send mine to my relatives in Australia and Ireland and Canada, so we could claim we have an international audience too. And but that's a way to share some of these conversations that you may wish to utilize. So good afternoon, have a good weekend, and we'll see you next time.